A UN committee has described the situation for disabled people in the UK as a human catastrophe and said it has more concerns about this country due to funding cuts than any other country in its 10-year history. Tracey Lazard has warned that the austerity measures are affecting 500,000 disabled people, each one losing between £2,000 and £3,000 a year. The most acute concern, she said, was on limitations on independent living, but she also said Britain was failing to fulfil its commitment to allow inclusive education, and a growing number of disabled people were living in poverty. Well, joining us now, Tracey Lazard, CEO of Inclusion London. Nice of you to come in, and you gave evidence, Tracey, to this report. Is it a fair assessment of what life is like for people in Britain?
It is absolutely a fair assessment. I mean, the deaf and disabled people's organisations that contributed are very happy with the concluding observations because it does reflect disabled people's experience. I mean, this is a damning verdict by the UN on the UK government's failure to protect and uphold disabled people's rights. There's no other word for it. The UN Disability Committee have produced a 17-page document full of concluding observations and recommendations, and the committee could only find 2 examples of positive government action. The rest of it is page after page of serious concerns, and those concerns are wholeheartedly shared by disabled people. I mean, the situation where we have the chair of the committee saying that the welfare reform and social care cuts are a human catastrophe for disabled people is shocking. But although it's shocking, it won't come as a surprise to disabled people because it is our lived experience.
And yet the government, who obviously we invited on tonight and declined, says it doesn't reflect the evidence it gave to the UN. It fails to recognise, the government's words, progress that has been made to empower disabled people in aspects of their lives. Do you see any of that progress? Do you see their attempts?
Not at all. I mean, I was there in Geneva and it was frankly embarrassing watching the government try and maintain a position of denial where they're saying that frankly everything is fine when there is a mountain of evidence now and our own lived experience that is saying actually something terribly wrong is happening. So the government needs to use these concluding observations as a wake-up call and show a bit of humility.
Is it about this government in a particular patch, if you like, of austerity, or is it successive governments? I mean, what do you see as being at the root of this?
Well, disabled people's situation is a combination of historic exclusion and discrimination, but the situation since austerity kicked in means that all of the achievements of the disabled people's rights movement over the last 40 years are being systematically dismantled. And that is the conclusion of the UN committee.
And you can say that here tonight, and the UN can write it, but this is, of course, non-binding. The government has dismissed it because it thinks it is doing the things that are creating progress. Where will we be then in 12 months, Tracey? If the government thinks it hasn't got a problem and the UN can't force it to change, what happens?
Well, you remember social care. Back in the November budget, social care was not even mentioned in that budget because the government were trying to pretend that everything is okay. And yet, come May, it nearly, toppled the government. And we believe this is the situation with disabled people. The government have consistently dismissed us. I mean, showing disdain for disabled people and the evidence that points to something badly going wrong. And they can't carry on like that. They just cannot carry on denying the problem that we have.
Tracey Lazard, thank you. Thanks for coming in.